Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That's the beauty of podcasting. Welcome in to Touchdown in Paradise here on the Finstock Sports Network. I'm Justin,
I'm Pete.
I'm Joe.
I'm Russ.
and half of us are on the road today. Pete, tell us where you are.
There's not much better than being a football fan, a gambling fan, and being in Vegas. I don't know if you guys can see this behind me, but that might be what they call the Bellagio fountain, and that's exactly where I'm at. My headspace is right. I'm seeing the board clearly. I got one of these. Let's go. We're gambling for days. PD Parlay's back. Screw Russ's rankings. I'm making a comeback, and I'm just happy to be with you guys. I'm excited to talk football. Let's get it going.
And I'm here stuck in the Tucson airport, so we're both on the road. Meanwhile, Joe back home in the South Bay, Russ out in Sarasota. Well, we've got a lot to talk about this week, so let's get right to it. Starting off with this, the big bombshell news story this week has been Michigan has been caught cheating. Yes, indeed. Michigan has been accused of sign stealing, a huge scheme with both video evidence of electronics prohibited by the NCAA to steal signs and a huge paper trail for ESPN. The Michigan staffer's name, Connor Stallion, was suspended for the alleged sign stealing scandal. Steins purchased tickets in his own name for more than 30 games over the past 3 years at 11 different Big Ten schools, also from ESPN. So let's start here with Russ. How significantly, if at all, should Michigan be punished?
They're probably going to get punished. Michigan's in the shit this year, obviously, with the hardball stuff, and the NCAA is still a little pissed at hardball, how they handle that. I definitely see it as sports cheating happens. So it's like, I'm fine with it. I'm a baseball guy, so baseball's kind of like cheat until you get caught. I mean, the electronic stuff is another story, but who knows? There's probably 150 other teams who do the same thing. So it's not like it's just Michigan's the one who got caught. Just like the Astros, every team was doing it. They took it to another level, but every team is using that same system in some aspects. So it's just Michigan's the one who got caught, and now they're going to be the poster child of it. So there's probably going to be repercussions. I hope it's not during the season. I want to see this team. I mean, it's a solid team, but there'll probably be some repercussions in the offseason.
Joe, what are your thoughts here?
It's interesting. The NCAA has it out for Harbaugh on a whole other level. Now, again, does he help his cause? No. It's an interesting situation. I agree. I'm sure there's other schools that are doing it. I'm sure there are, other teams that are doing something similar. But again, I definitely think they're going to be a poster child. I definitely think they are going to get the brunt of whatever dumb penalty the NCAA does come up with. But, I just think for whatever reason, the NCAA wants to punish Harbaugh, and they kind of have their smoking gun, I think, at this point.
Pete, chime in real quick here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like, part of me is like, what the hell are you doing? And then part of me is like, well, every team's probably doing this. I'm not excited, but I'm interested to see the background as to what evidence do they have? How long has it been going on? Can they link the evidence directly to outcomes of games in terms of like, hey, a game was tied at this point. We have video evidence of them calling an audible. I'm saying this because I've seen video evidence on Twitter of them calling an audible, say it's Ohio State or someone, and Michigan immediately knowing on the sideline with Harbaugh in the picture, knowing what was going to be called, calling out to their defense and changing basically the coverage. So I'm interested to see more of it. Part of me just feels like, you can change the play so many times in college. If you change the play right away and snap it, does the defense really even have time to react and know what you're going to do? I don't know. I just want to see more of it. I will say, though, in a year where Harbaugh was already suspended, not a good fucking look. So, but outside of that, it's kind of a non-story to me. I feel like they're all freaking cheating. Whether they're cheating off the field or on the field, they're all trying to do it. Hey, and at least the guy bought tickets to these games. It's not like he just went on with his press pass and didn't pay. He bought a lot of tickets, so someone's getting paid,
I could see Hardball just at the end of the year, if this hits the fan, be like, screw it, I'll just go back to the NFL. I can't take it.
Well, Russ, and I think you're right, because he's definitely on an uptrend here, and who knows if it's from the sign stealing or, obviously just him being a good coach. But I could see that too, dude. I literally could see him leaving. I mean, there's a number of teams in the NFL that coaches. He's done it before. He's been to a Super Bowl. Like, if the NCAA wants to punish you that bad, I'll pack my bags and I'm out. I'll go get paid a bag somewhere else and still get paid by Michigan.
Every offseason you hear hardball rumors, so he's not lack of interest.
Yeah, there's definitely not a lack of opportunity for the guy. That's for sure.
The one thing I will say, it is rather interesting. COVID year, Michigan is atrocious. They're talking about firing Harbaugh, and then the past couple of years, Michigan has been this dominating team. So if that's the case, if this is the success that is, it's not Harbaugh, maybe it's the fact that what play is coming. Who knows? Who knows? What's going to happen? I just think it's interesting. Michigan was awful for the first couple of years. Harbaugh was there, and then now they're in the playoff every year. Now seems a little questionable.
Man, it always happens to the Tom Brady teams, I swear.
Yep.
Just a history and a lineage of cheaters.
Staying in the state of Michigan, gosh, you talk about a state really under the microscope here, and for good reason too. Michigan State suspended an employee for displaying an image of Hitler in the video board. The image appeared as part of a quiz on the big screen in the pregame. It was taken from the quiz channel on YouTube, who claimed the school never asked for permission nor paid them to use their content, and defended the decision to include it in their video. The quote from Floris Van Pelledent, I know I butchered that, and I'm sorry. The owner of this channel said, "It's an absolutely normal trivia question shown in an inappropriate setting. Ignoring the dark facets of history is by no means the answer. On the contrary." Michigan State Athletic Director Alan Haller claimed no one watched the entire video before putting it up there, responding, "Anti-Semitism must be denounced. The image displayed prior to Saturday's game is not representative of who we are and the culture we embody. Nevertheless, we must own our failures and accept responsibility." Michigan State then vowed to never use third-party content again and claims a stronger screening and approval procedures for all video board content will be implemented in the future, per the Associated Press. So, guys, I'll speak last on this as the Jewish guy on this podcast, but is this suspension enough? Should more be done?
I'll jump in. You definitely have to be suspended. You might have to be suspended, like never come back to the team type of vibe. I haven't seen the video. I don't know if there's ever been a link to the video. Was it something as, oh, hey, we saw this video, we didn't watch the whole damn thing, we didn't realize it was at the end of it? If that's the case, multiple people should be fired, because you're supposed to approve content before it goes out. I mean, in front of 70,000+ people, especially low key, especially with what's going on right now. Like, come on, dude. Like, you just can't do that. So whether it's suspended indefinitely and they don't end up coming back, or a deeper review, something has to happen where multiple people have to be fired and suspended. If they don't do that, I feel like in the eyes of just everyone, it'll be like not doing enough. And this is a pretty cut and dry thing. Hey, you did this. We all saw it. You got to make a swift decision here and just cut some people out,
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the AD, who in my opinion should already be under some scrutiny, simply states, claims no one watched the entire video. Shouldn't you be vetting everything that potentially goes out to a mass media or mass amount of people? So in my opinion, what's the punishment? I'm not going to say what the punishment should be. I mean, that is not my call. Obviously, I have my beliefs. I think the AD should possibly be gone. I think whoever really, was the person that said, hey, let's take this from YouTube and use it should be gone, because you can't be creative enough to think of Michigan State quiz or something. You have to take it from someone else. Like, I mean, me as a teacher, that's a thing called plagiarism. So you would get a 0 and get in a detention for that. You'd potentially get suspended. So it's not just one person that's probably that this is gonna fall on. I think this is gonna fall on a lot of people. But again, for the AD to simply claim no one vetted this, no one reviewed this, just shows that it starts from the top. The AD himself is not leading by example. And I think Michigan State, with already all the heat that they have, they should just scrap the whole athletic department and restart. But again, that's not my choice. I'm not the president of the school. They have to go through this, another blemish on their resume. And it will be interesting to see what they decide.
I mean, yeah, I feel like the AD was already probably in hot water before this even happened. And him kind of admitting that we didn't vet this third party, it's just poor taste, especially with what's all going on right now. So it's just, they're not on top of it. And he's probably already in hot water, just everything happening at Michigan State. And now this happens. I'm like, just pile it on. Maybe, like Joe said, scrap it and start fresh. Cause that school's got a lot of stuff, that has been exposed.
They're clearly not doing something right, and it has to stem from the leadership from the top, which is the AD. So yeah, I think if I was the president, I would just say, look, the Mel Tucker thing is a disaster. This is now even worse. I'm just scrap it. We're starting over.
Well, and I agree there. And it's not just the things that are happening to them. Like, you can't control things that, like, shit happens. Like, but you can control how you respond to it. And the response has been awful on multiple occasions. I mean, dating back to, the other sexual stuff that happened a couple of years ago. Like, it's just the response is not good. And because of that alone, not like, if you don't even look at what happened, you just look at the response to it, they got to go.
All great statements from you guys, and I appreciate the support. As the Jewish guy in this podcast, there's so much going on in the world right now, especially in the Middle East, and my heart breaks for everyone in that area, regardless if you're Jewish, Arab, Israeli, Palestinian. If you're an innocent soul out there and just seeing what's going on, you feel scared for your life. And being a Jew in America in this day and age is such a hard deal. As a personal note here, not just being Jewish, but having grown up an Astros fan, like seeing 2017 happen, it just broke my heart when you hear the truth about that. Also, being a vegan, you're up against a big crowd. And being here now, just in this world and seeing everything going on. And not only that, but how if you only hear one side, you're probably going to hate the other. And why can't we just love? Why can't we? And being where I am sitting here, I can't even look at social media anymore because I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe that the people are just spreading anti-Semitic slurs. People are going out in the street and protesting and to get rid of all the Jews. And just for this to come out at this specific time, not just for Michigan State, but for the Jewish people at the same time, we just can't win. It's more than just we. Like, where is human decency? Where is going back and checking through things 3, 4, 5 times to make sure you're okay with something being put out there? Where is that? You know how many times I've gotten in trouble at my job for me having ADD and not going back and checking over something 2, 3, 4, 5 times? And yet they choose to take something from a quiz channel that happened to feature this. They don't look through it and put it out in probably your biggest game of the year against your in-state rival who's probably going to go to the playoff. Yet they lose the game 49-0 on your home field and have this. I cannot think of a worse look for a school. I can't think of a worse look for an athletic department. And quite frankly, this is just so scary that you're peddling even more of this by putting something like that up there. I get it was a trivia question from a YouTube channel, but what I'm trying to say here is the timing is off, and it's scary to be Jewish. It's scary to be Muslim. It's scary to be any religion that's being suppressed. It's scary to be any person of color in today's day and age and being suppressed in this way. So Michigan State needs to do better. And I agree with Joe. Take it all down. Scrap it brick by brick. Start over. We need change. Now to move on here. Last week we did see an interesting couple of games, but I want to start here with Virginia stunning North Carolina 31-27. Props to Virginia, by the way. That's nothing that we saw coming. I know Tony Ellis had a very tough job coming back from the murders of his 3 players from last year, and this just feels good for them. So congrats to the Hoos. Tony Muskett, Virginia quarterback, 208 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Malik Washington, 12 catches, 115 yards, and 1 touchdown. Meanwhile, Drake May, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 pick. This was Virginia's first ever road win over a top 10 opponent. So, Joe, let me hear from you. What does this mean for the ACC race?
Ooh, ACC race overall, man, in my opinion, it's Florida State. I mean, really, that's what it is. It's Florida State, and I mean, I think North Carolina could, still get in the ACC title game. I think a game that will be interesting to watch is that Louisville Duke game this weekend, because again, I could see one of them surprisingly squeak in. But again, I think overall, I think it's Florida State or bust. If Florida State gets upset by someone, ACC may not have a single person in the playoff, I think. I mean, as it is, I think it was they were projecting Washington and the Pac-12 over the ACC as it is, potentially, because I guess they look at the Oregon win and potential SC win. Well, not so much SC anymore, but their strength of schedule a little more difficult than Florida State. So ACC is in a tough spot because losing to Virginia, it hurts North Carolina big. So ACC conference is praying that Florida State can win out.
Russ, what do you think?
I mean, that's a tough loss. That's not the way you want it. It's Florida State's conference to lose now, but I can still see UNC running the table and seeing them in Charlotte. And, if that happens and say they beat, Florida State and UNC meet, and UNC does beat Florida State if they both make it, excuse me. I mean, that's just throwing another wrench in there for the ACC that I think would keep them out. So, but like Joe said, and like I said, it's Florida State's to lose, and that's the ACC's best shot.
Pete, if this happens, Russ's scenario where North Carolina wins out and beats Florida State in Charlotte for the ACC championship, does North Carolina get in?
That's tough. With how powerful some of these other conferences are, especially the Big Ten, the Pac-12, and Saban trying to weasel his way in the SEC. I just don't know. I would hope that we would at least maybe have one school from each. Obviously, Power 5, you can't have 5 teams, but I'd hope we wouldn't have 2 from one conference. I could see it happening, especially based on maybe how the rest of their schedule goes, like how they win. Do they pass the eye test? Do they blow teams out? At this point now, it's up to Florida State not to lose. And if UNC does want to make the top 4, they got to blow teams out. They got to dominate. And I just don't know, especially after this game, which Virginia, their first road top 10 win ever. I mean, that's a game you just can't lose if you're UNC. You can't lose that game. You just can't do it. And they did. So it leads me to think this conversation's null and void because I think they're going to lose again. So, yeah, I think it's pretty much just Florida State. They're going to run the table, be undefeated, make the top 4. It could not happen, but at this point, I'm not even UNC's not in my head anymore at all.
It's a bad loss. Like, that is the thing.
Terrible loss.
It's a terrible loss. Like, so when you have a committee that's looking at maybe like a one-loss Oregon versus a one-loss NC North Carolina, there's no way they're skipping Oregon over North Carolina.
Moving along here, we have a Big Ten matchup that happened this weekend where game day was it was a great atmosphere in the morning. Ohio State wins a physical battle with Penn State 2012. Kyle McCord, 286 yards, 1 touchdown. Marvin Harrison Jr., 11 catches, 162 yards, another touchdown for him. What a beast of a game he had. Meanwhile, for Penn State, Drew Auer, 191 yards and 1 touchdown. So the question here is, and we'll start with Pete this time, did Ohio State prove they're true contenders, or is Penn State not as good as we thought?
Based on what I watched, Penn State's not as good as I thought. I don't think Ohio State proved much. I mean, they've been beating them every year, even at home, away. I mean, you saw the mixtape. I call it a mixtape because all it was Ohio State highlights before the game about them beating Penn State when they're ranked in the top 15, especially in the past decade. So, to me, I really had high hopes for Penn State. I think I picked them to win. I was disappointed. They're not as good as I thought. Ohio State, to me, though, they didn't ball out and show me something crazy. I mean, I still think Notre Dame should have beat them. I think Notre Dame's better than both these teams combined. So, yeah, that's kind of my take on it. Ohio State, you lost, or Penn State, you lost. Okay, move on to the side. Ohio State's going to keep focusing on the Big Ten title. We'll see what happens with Michigan, but yeah, I mean, both teams kind of. Ohio State basically showed me what I already thought, and Penn State showed me that they're definitely not as good as I thought they were. And also, I think I saw a stat that Penn State doesn't have a road top 10 win, and I don't even know how long. So, congrats to Virginia for getting that, because Penn State hasn't done that. So.
Excellent take. Russ.
I mean, I think Ohio State's defense is stout. That offense looks kind of stagnant. I mean, and we talked about it at the beginning of the year. I'm like, James Franklin, he's in the top 25, but when are you going to get those big wins against Michigan and Ohio State? That's what he was brought in for, and he really hasn't done it. So
exactly, Russ.
Is he on the hot seat? And when are they just going to let – I mean, at the end of the day, they got to let Drew Auer, live and die, not just keep on running the ball. I'm like, you see your offense isn't moving. Let him throw it a little bit. I mean, your offense, your running game, which was your strength coming in this game, was not really getting many yards on the ground. So I'm like, let it fly. It's not working. So, I mean, I don't know if that goes into James Franklin's coaching staff is saying this is our plan, which he's definitely, if you've seen interviews, that is his plan and he's sticking to it and that's what he's doing. But sometimes you just got to change it on the fly because it wasn't working.
Joe.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, credit to Ohio State's defense. I mean, they had a game plan, shut down the run, and that's really what they did. I mean, there were a couple instances where Penn State would break out, but, then they would bend, don't break, essentially. That D-line is stout. So I give Ohio State some credit here. But I definitely agree with Pete. James Franklin is just not a good head coach in these big games. He's reminding me of Brian Kelly in the Big Ten, essentially.
Exactly. Yes. Good comparison.
That's perfect.
Brian Kelly did give him a national title game, a little different. So,
I mean, very true. I mean, so give Brian Kelly a little more credit. But what my point is, in the big primetime games against your rivals, against teams that if you want to be the top dog in the Big Ten, you have to beat, he can't, and he continuously can't beat, specifically Ohio State, at home and away. I think the last time they beat Ohio State was when Saquon was there in, 2015?
Did they beat them that year?
I want to say
they did beat them not in 2015. I believe it was 2016 or 2017, I think.
It was one of those. I think it was 15 because that's when they went to the Rose Bowl and
that
played
was,
LC.
That was in Happy Valley.
Yeah, it was a whiteout.
They haven't beat Ohio State in 15 years in Columbus.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, it's the fact that you were brought in to Penn State to compete for Big Ten and national championships, but you have missed one hurdle continuously, and that's beating Ohio State and to a lesser degree, Michigan. He has beat Michigan a few times, but Ohio State, he can't beat. He can't beat. And credit to Ohio State's defense and a very poor offensive plan from Penn State. Because again, I agree with you, Russ. You have a guy who's 6'4", has a cannon of an arm, and you're just telling him to dink it 5-10 yards. They're gonna realize that.
And Aller, Drew Aller, I might be getting this wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's from Centerville, Ohio. He grew up a Buckeyes fan, so he wanted to go to Ohio State. Let him beat. I mean, this is the guy who's been dreaming to be a Buckeye his whole life.
Just looking back, it was October 22nd, 2016. The final score was 24-21. So yes, I believe Saquon may have been a freshman at that point. But yeah, that was a whiteout game. It was a crazy night. I remember watching that game live. It was insane. But nonetheless, they just can't get it done again. When is James Franklin ever going to get over the hump? If he ever does, is he going to stay at Penn State if he can't do it? Maybe the next 3 years, that remains to be seen. But we've got to keep moving along here. Next game here, missed calls help Washington avoid an upset versus Arizona State. Final score was 15-7. I shared a couple photos to you guys here in the rundown, just looking at this egregious no call where you see the Washington defender clearly pulling and tugging at this jersey for the Arizona State receiver in the end zone, which should have given them a 1st and goal at the 1. So let me hear this from you guys. Looking at Michael Penix's stats from this game, 275 yards, 2 picks. Russ, is he still worthy of the Heisman?
All right, so we're going off of one game. We're gonna take this guy off one game.
Well, that's what happened to Caleb Williams. That's what they did after the ND game.
Okay, but Caleb Williams, has had 2 bad games.
Not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying.
So it's like, one game. We saw Georgia last year had a handful of bad games. They won a national title. So it's like
we're talking a Heisman year, though, not a national title.
Okay, but you're not going to go off one game. There, everybody's got one bad game. And on the other point with it's a missed call. I'm all done with we blame the refs every time. These guys are human. They make, it's a bad mistake, but these guys are human. And if we start over criticizing everything, it's going to make the game miserable. Look at the NBA. The NBA, we complained years and years about the referees. We got to review. We review everything in the NBA. Every time you see this, review it. I'm like, you're making the game longer. You're taking the human aspect out of it. These guys make mistakes. It was a bad no call. But yeah. I mean, if we're going to start scrutinizing every little thing, you're going to start turning people away from the product.
Yeah, and I'm just going to jump in on this because I feel very strongly. This is why I love college football, is because they let the guys play. Now, this terrible non-call. I mean, just terrible. But this is why we love college football. You don't sit through a 2-minute drill in the NFL with 30 flags that takes 45 minutes to do the last 3 to 5 minutes of a game. No, you let the kids play, okay? Bad no call. You got to bounce back. You got to figure it out. I am perfectly okay with it, not happy with it, but okay with it because that's why we love college football. They literally let the guys decide for the most part. The other thing I will notice, Arizona State played great against USC, right? Took them to, 3 overtimes or whatever that was. That was Arizona State, right? Their defenses. Oh, Jesus.
No, it was Arizona State. It was
Arizona State. Well,
that was Arizona State, right?
This week was Arizona State. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Well, whatever. The Arizona University, both of them are playing good defense. I think it's not necessarily right to get rid of Penix Heisman after 1 week. Okay, I get it. Even the Caleb Williams stuff. Come on, dude. We outplayed him. He had a bad week. I'm on Russ's side with that. But it definitely does hurt his Heisman chances. I mean, to only score 15 points in total or whatever. You got to do better than that. So I think it was definitely a gut check for Washington. They need to figure some stuff out, and then they got to come back this week and basically ball out as though last week didn't happen. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
it's it wasn't a televised game either. So it's like, you're seeing replay. So it's like these guys make and break Heismans off of big moments that are, primetime games. That game was 10:30 on the East Coast. Nobody past the Rockies probably saw that game.
I was up in Wisconsin. I was watching it, and then I fell asleep.
Yeah. I mean, that you're what, 9:30 start time?
Yeah, it was epic. It really gives meaning to Pac-12 after dark.
Yeah, it's after dark for sure.
Which is why the Pac-12 is no longer a thing after this year. Joe, your thoughts on this game?
I'll be brief. I don't think this removes Penix from the Heisman. I think it just makes it a lot more competitive again. I think it's really anyone's again, where last week we were saying it's his to lose. And I'm not saying he lost it. He just made it a lot closer. I think the issue and the question too about the refs is the fact that they threw the flag and then picked it up and waved it.
Yep.
Again, I do agree with Russ. I think though, these people are humans. They will make mistakes. I mean, you look at every sport, we see issues of that. If you're on the winning side, you're going to just say, whatever, we won. If you're on the losing side, that's when you start complaining and bitching about it. So, it's unless we want robots, which I know we don't. Look at the issues in the Premier League with VAR. We want human umps. I mean, in baseball, I would want human ups. It just makes the game go quicker and it makes it more organic. And I think with some mistakes, it makes the game more exciting in a way. I mean, maybe not in a good way always, but it makes it more exciting, as well as you cannot be dependent on one play to make or break the game. It's a game. You have 4 quarters. We've mentioned this about other topics, but again, if you're hoping, if he just doesn't make that call, well, then you had, 40, 60 minutes, whatever sport it is, to win that game. So it's a bad call. Would I, punish the refs, maybe fine them or whatever, maybe, or, don't give them a primetime game, or, this wasn't a primetime game, but whatever, of course, but, it's just part of the game.
Mm-hmm. I liken this to the Rams-Saints playoff game a couple years ago when there was a clear pass interference call that wasn't even flagged. And so Saints fans complained and complained, but they got the ball and they had the chance to win the game in overtime and right after that, and nothing happened. So, I mean, looking at this, I just wanted to bring it up for that reason, to see what your thoughts were. If it were me, yeah, it sucks, but you still have 3 more chances to get in the end zone. And what do? You throw a pick 6. So moving on here, I know it is time for the Russ Report.
Ooh.
All right. Presented by Bush Barbarian Boys. So, Joe's still on top. He's got 50.5. I made an epic comeback this week. I'm right below him at 49. I finally hit a upset, my first. Yeah, right? Only took about 8 weeks. Justin, you're at 46, so you're still there. Pete, terrible week, dude. You're at 36. You're slacking. I hope your picks with your money are a little better than your ones in our parlay. So,
well, the Lakers lost tonight, so I might be living on the farm.
All right, boys. So we're going to jump right in here to our Paradise Parlay. Starting off in the Big 12 with Oklahoma at Kansas. OU is a 10-point road favorite. Over-under is 66. OU money line is minus 380, and KU is plus 300. Joe, let's hear from you first.
Well, talk about an amazing game last week, that UCF Oklahoma game. I was watching from beginning to end. I honestly thought UCF had it. Justin, I'm sorry to bring up maybe a sore topic. But I think it showed that Oklahoma has some flaws. So because of that, I'm taking Kansas with the points. I'm taking the over, but I'm going money line Oklahoma. I think they squeak it out. I think they're going to win by a touchdown.
Oh, great picks here. I'm looking at Kansas covering. I'm going to go the over, but I'll take the Oklahoma money line here just because I feel like they're trying to get that Texas-Oklahoma matchup in the Big 12 championship. Russ.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kansas will cover. I think UCF, great, great tough battle. I think they kind of exposed Oklahoma's weaknesses. They definitely, their run defense definitely got gashed. So I do think they'll cover. I think Oklahoma definitely pulls it out, and I got the over.
And Pete,
I got to make some swerving picks here to get back in this thing. So Oklahoma's going to smash them and cover the 10 points. Over 66, Oklahoma money line. I'm getting back on the board. I'm seeing everything clearly. I got my little cheat sheet here from MGM at the Cosmo. I can see everything so clear. I'm a gambling god right now. Oklahoma.
Okay, coming up next too, we have South Carolina visiting the Aggies of Texas A&M. A&M is a 14-point home favorite. Over-under is 53.5. A&M minus 675. South Carolina plus 490. Russ, give us your picks.
I'm going South Carolina to cover. It is in College Station, so I think A&M will get the win, and I'm going with the over.
All right, Pete.
I absolutely hate A&M, so I'm going South Carolina money line, pounding it. A&M almost plays better away than they do home. They're more competitive, at least in my mind. That's what I'm telling myself. So they're at home. They're not going to be competitive. Jimbo's going to suck one, and South Carolina is going to pull this out. South Carolina cover over 53.5. I think it's going to barely get it, and then South Carolina money line. Let's go, baby. Gamecock Nation, son.
All right. Well, looking at this here, South Carolina has had some trouble scoring recently, but so is Texas A&M with Max Johnson. I know they're at home this time, but I'll take South Carolina to cover that plus 14. I just don't see this being a home cooking deal. I'm going to pick the under at 53.5, and I'll go A&M money line to win the game. Joe.
Yeah, I've been talking. The spread has me bouncing back and forth. I don't think South Carolina is that good of a team this year, unfortunately. But I think 14 points is a lot of points. So I'm taking South Carolina with the spread plus 14. I'm taking the under, but I think A&M, since it's at home, will get the W.
Okay, now we have some ACC action here. Clemson at North Carolina State. Clemson is a minus 10 favorite on the road. Over-under is 44. Clemson minus 395 and NC State plus 310. I'll leave this one off here because if you know me, you know my beef with NC State. They can never, ever, ever finish. I'll take them to cover, but I'm going to take Clemson money line to win, and I'll go under 44. Pete.
Yeah, they gave Notre Dame a little bit of trouble earlier in the season, but I think Clemson's going to go in there and just absolutely pound them. So I'm taking Clemson to cover the 10. I'm doing over 44. That's a very low number, especially for an ACC game, I feel like. And then I'm going to take Clemson money line at 395. You got to bet a lot just to win $100. So maybe I'll bet, I don't know, maybe a couple thousand. JK. But I'm taking Clemson to win straight up. They're going to get it done. NC State, they're done.
Joe.
This is going to be a defensive game. I think both teams have very good defenses, very stout defenses. With that said, then I look to, okay, who has the better offense when they need a touchdown? I think that's Clemson. But for whatever reason, they don't like running the ball with Will Shipley. So maybe this is where they figure it out. Maybe I'm taking Clemson with the point minus 10. I'm going to take the under. I definitely think it's going to be a low scoring game, and I'm taking Clemson with the money line.
And Russ.
Yeah, I'm going the same as Joe and Justin.
Okay. BYU at Texas. Now, this is an interesting stat. BYU is 4-1 against the Longhorns all time. Texas, though, is a 17.5-point favorite in Austin, 50.5 over-under. Texas is a minus 950 home money line favorite. BYU plus 625. Russ, let's hear from you first.
I think BYU is going to cover. That's a big spread. Texas will win, and I got the over.
All right, Pete.
I haven't really looked into the Quinn Ewers stuff. I saw that he was injured. Is Archie Manning going to play? No, he's not. Okay, Joe's
it's looking like Malik Murphy is going to start for Texas.
Ooh, man! If Archie Manning was going to play, I was going to say bet your entire family's historical net worth on this game because there's no way he loses his opener. I still think that's going to happen. Texas ain't going to lose. I'd be interested to know that stat, Justin. Those BYU versus Texas games, were they at home? Were they away? What the vibe was? But Texas has got them. Hook them.
The only Texas win, I believe, was a 14-13 win over BYU in Austin in 2011, where Case McCoy was their starter, and he was a freshman too. Yeah, but given a lot of those came with Taysom Hill at quarterback too. Taysom Hill used to run all over Texas.
Saints legend, you mean?
Yeah, Latter-day Saints legend, you mean? If you caught my drift there. Well, I'm going to call this game as my cover of the week, Russ. Looking at this, BYU Texas has typically been competitive. I know BYU is no good this year, and Texas is better, but the fact that Quinn Ewers is not in this game leads you to believe BYU doesn't have a chance to win per se, but they're not going to lose by 17.5. They've always been competitive against the Longhorns. I'm going to go the over, and I'll take the Texas money line to win close. Joe.
Yeah, I was going back and forth with this. I think if Quinn Ewers was playing, I think Texas just blows them out. It's not even close. Give BYU credit, though. They've gone into some hostile environments and won. I mean, I know Arkansas is not that good this year, but that environment in Little Rock is are they in Fayetteville?
Fayetteville.
Is still a hostile environment. So I don't think they'll be really overwhelmed. I just think, again, Texas is a better team. So I am 17 points. I'm going BYU with the plus 17.5. I'm taking the over. I think Texas is going to win, though. I think Texas is just a much better team.
The world's largest cocktail party is this weekend, boys. Jacksonville, Florida is the place. Florida, Georgia, UGA minus 14.5, over under 49. Georgia minus 650 and UF plus 470. Russ, you're in the South. Why don't we start with you?
Well, Florida's going to cover. I don't care if it's kind of a down year. This is a hostile environment. This is a rivalry game. So Florida will definitely cover. You know, if we've seen this game in the past, it should be a good game. It should be a very good game. I'm taking the over, but Georgia's going to win.
Yeah, looking at this, being that I went to college in Florida, you pay attention to all the teams when you live in Florida. And Russ, I'm sure you would attest to that as well. And seeing this, Florida, Georgia, without Brock Bowers playing for the Bulldogs, has a chance to be a closer game than people think. I know the Gators haven't looked spectacular this year. They've had their moments, but not spectacular. I'll take them to cover. And I'm going to go the under here because I think Georgia's defense is still pretty good, but they're going to struggle without Brock Bowers. And then I'll take Georgia to win with the money line. Pete.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a struggle without Bowers, but I think Georgia kind of figures it out. And I think they're just a better team than Florida. So I'm taking Georgia to cover the 14.5. I'm taking the over. I think it's going to be relatively high scoring. And then, I guess I'll take the Georgia money line. The number's pretty high, so I wouldn't throw much money on it. I'd stick to the over-under and the spread.
All right, Joe.
Yeah, I ultimately think Georgia does get the win, but then it's really what Florida team shows up. I have not picked a correct Florida game whenever we talk about a game that they're playing. But again, since it's just a rivalry game, this is a huge – both schools circle it every year regardless if they're in national title contention or they're 0-8. So I'm going to give Florida the points. Florida plus 14.5, that's a lot. I'm going to take the under. With Brock Bowers being out, I think Georgia's going to have some problems, as well as I think Florida's offense is not very good, or I should say just not consistent. So I'm Florida plus 14.5. I'm taking the under, but I think Georgia gets a win by 10.
Oregon State at Arizona, a red-hot Wildcats team, if I may add. Oregon State is a road favorite here, minus 3.5. The over-under is 56.5. Money line here, Oregon State minus 175, and Arizona plus 145. Joe, I want to start with you here. What are your thoughts around this matchup?
Both, regardless of record, both Arizona teams have been playing very well. I mean, I know ASU is like 1-7 or whatever, but they've battled. U of A has also battled, and we've talked about them multiple weeks now. You know, they're a very good team. I'm taking U of A with the points +3.5. I'm taking the over. You know, the money line, I've been bouncing back and forth, but you know what? For you, Russ, I'm switching my call. I'm going U of A money line, bear down.
So, but you're all right. Got you.
Russ, our resident Wildcat, what do you think?
Well, this is probably one of the biggest games they've had in Tucson since maybe Nick Foles in 2014 when Iowa came to town. And my brother was at that game, and they literally shut out, like they weren't letting the students in. And my brother and about 15 guys go, let's just bum rush them. And they just bum rushed the security guards. And probably about 30 people got knocked down, hit pretty hard, but majority of them got in. But this is going to be a little different because that game, some dumbass students decided to rush the field a little early and they lost. This is going to be a little different. I got Arizona with the points, Arizona with the money line, and I'm hitting the over. Bear down, baby. Bear down.
Russ, I don't know about that stat because Nick Foles was drafted in 2012.
It was one of those years. A year after the last time game day's been in Tucson against Oregon.
Bring on Scooby Wright back.
That's right. Pete.
2014, we were in the Fiesta Bowl. That was
like Nick Foles, or says some call him Big Dick Nick. DJ Ungale is going to drop his big D on the field in Arizona. He's coming in there. I get the vibe. It's going to be a statement game for him. He's going to go out there and ball out. Arizona's going to lose big. I'm taking Oregon State massive. I might even, get the spread. Instead of bumping it down, I would bump it up. I'm taking Oregon State to win by 3.5 at least. Come on. Over, pound the over, and money line Oregon State. Let's go Beavers. Let's go.
And being that I'm in Tucson, I've gotten a little biased here. Looking at this Wildcat team, they're feisty. They are feisty. Jed Fish has got these guys playing very well. Credit to him for taking this team, this program really, from the gutter to on the rise again. So for that reason, I'll take Arizona to cover the spread. I'll take the over because I don't think either defense is really going to stop anybody. And then I'll take Arizona money line with the upset here. And finally, our game of the week, the other Oregon team, Oregon Ducks at Utah. Utah has game day this week, which is very interesting. This is going to be a heck of a matchup. Looking at this, Oregon is a 7-point favorite. Over-under here is 49. Oregon minus 270 is the money line move, and Utah plus 220 at home. Pete, let's hear from you first. This is just a toss-up game we've been talking about for all week, pretty much.
God bless it. I want to go with Utah because the way they played this entire season. But I have seen they have a couple injuries after that USC game. I think they're really going to hamper them. Normally, I would say pound Utah because no one gets pounded in Utah and they're ready to pound. I'd say the boys and girls on campus are going to be ready to go drinking that near beer that's half the percentage at 6 a.m. All that's going to happen, but, Oregon's going to be doing the pounding. So I'm taking Oregon big. And not only that, it's just tough to win that game at USC, I feel like. Have a number of injuries on offense and defense and come back to Utah and get back up for this game. So I'm taking Oregon kind of big. That's kind of where I'm going with it. So I'm going to take Oregon to cover the 7 over 49 and Oregon money line. Not a lot of times I can say a road favorite's coming into Utah is going to beat the Utes, but I think this is going to happen.
I'll go with you there, Pete. I think Oregon is going to win. I don't know if it's going to be huge because Utah is a very tough place to play, Rice-Eccles Stadium, but I'll take Oregon to cover. I'm going to go the over as well, and I'll take Oregon money line. Russ.
Yeah, I'm going to go Utah to cover. I think Oregon ends up pulling it out. I struggled with the over-under because they're both very solid defenses. And Utah, without Cam Rising, can they score? I'm going to take the over, but I mean, I'm not confident in it.
And Joe, the one we've been waiting for here.
Yeah, hearing all of your guys' arguments are good points. It's in Utah, and that stadium gets bumping regardless if they're drinking 4% beer, 3% beer, non-alcoholic. I'm gonna go Utah to cover the spread. I think 7 is a good number. I just saw though it dropped. It's at 6.5. I'm taking the over. I don't think they needed Cam Rising. They've proven that they can win any situation without him. But I ultimately do think Oregon pulls it out. I think they have a consistent quarterback. I think their defense is good. I think their rushing game's good. So I think in a tight game, I think Oregon wins in a last-minute field goal. I think that field goal kicker comes back and wins the game.
Great picks, everybody. Now, there you have it. There's our Paradise Parlay. We're going to speed through the rest of the show here because I know some of us have to run. Our upsets and covers of the week. I had BYU covering Texas. Joe, what's yours?
I have Colorado beating UCLA plus 17. Coming off a bye week, they're healthy. Yeah, they give up a ton of yards. I'd like to see UCLA stop that offense, though. So I think in a high-scoring game, Neon Dion gets the Buffaloes back on track.
Russ.
Hey, Pete, I'm going to remind you, it's got to be a 4.5 minimum. 6.5 is a mat. You get the 5 points. All right. I'm taking West Virginia over UCF.
Ooh.
Okay.
Going with Pat McAfee, baby.
Petey, let's hear from you.
Hey, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I'm going to take Houston over Kansas State.
All right. Dana Holgerson versus Chris Kleiman. And now for our sleeper teams of the week. I know I'm going to get some flack for this, and I don't feel good picking this team, but I'm going to go with Alabama. Though they haven't looked all that impressive this year, they did come back and beat Tennessee last week after trailing 20-7.5. The final score is 34-20. They didn't allow a single point in the second half. I got to say, with Jalen Miller, a quarterback, and that rest of that quarterback room with Tommy Rees at offensive coordinator, I'm just going to give Nick Saban credit here. And all of a sudden, with Brock Bowers out, the SEC might be open. Joe.
Last week, Iowa let me down. I talked them up big, and then they lose to Minnesota at home of all teams.
Hey, they got cheated out of a touchdown.
That's true. But again, you're at home. You have to blow out a team like Minnesota. I know Iowa doesn't blow out people.
Yeah.
But, hey, they should have. I'm going to go Tulane. I think a lot of people are sleeping on them. They only have one loss, and I'm looking it up right now. They lost to Ole Miss in the second week, and I think their QB was out. Again, people are sleeping on the Green Wave. Look out for Tulane.
Great pick. Russ.
It's Arizona. That's the only pick, the only right pick. U of A, they're going to get a big W this week. Jed Fisher's got the boys rolling, moving in the right direction. I think they're a true definition of a sleeper team because they're picked 9th or 10th to finish in the Pac-12 this year. So I'm ready. I'm excited to see, how Jed Fisher's doing, and I think they roll this week. It should be a really good game though.
A quick stat correction here. He's not a fisher. He's a fish. He is not the hunter. He's the hunted. Now for the games we're watching.
Whoa, hold on. I got to throw mine in there.
My apologies.
Hey, as Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friend. I'm going to go sacrilegious LSU. They have a bye week before they play Alabama. Brian Kelly is historically good off of bye weeks. As we mentioned, I think a week or two ago when I brought up LSU, it's not about Brian Kelly. It's about Jaden Daniels. That guy's a stud. I consider them an underdog or a sleeper team here. The remainder of their schedule, they got Bama, Florida at home, Georgia State at home, and Texas A&M at home. So I think LSU could be a real sleeper here if they beat Bama and they can really mix things up a little bit, knock Saban out, which is what I thought Tennessee would do. Could not do it. I think maybe Brian Kelly, especially in the back of his mind, he's like, all right, let me get Saban here. I haven't got him before. Let's get him. So I'm taking LSU. Go Tigers.
Great picks all around. Love it. And games we're watching, I'm going to go with Russ's pick here, West Virginia UCF. Yeah, the game that I'm watching. Can the Knights' near upset of OU fuel them to their first Big 12 win? Will it be? Joe?
Well, I think the obvious one is Oregon, Utah. Everyone's going to be watching that one. But the real game I'm going to be watching, Louisville versus Duke. This could have some serious implication with the North Carolina loss. So I will definitely be watching that game.
Yes, it could determine, say, if FSU does go to the playoff, who goes to the Orange Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And Russ?
I got two games. I got one for my West Coast people, Oregon State, Arizona. I think it's going to be a great game. And then my people down here in the South, Florida, Georgia, biggest cocktail party. Even though Florida's down, I think it's going to be a great game.
Pete, round us out.
Yeah, I think the game being in the swamp down there, I had on here Utah versus
it's in Jacksonville.
Jacksonville. Whatever. It's all, whatever. It's pretty close. Still Florida. So I'm going to take the Florida game because I think if Florida – I don't think it's going to happen. I think I chose Georgia big. But if Florida can upset them, we got a lot of things that could be in the mix here. So I'm kind of rooting for the upset even though I didn't pick it.
Yes. All right. So now we move on to our final segment here. Cheers for the week. Starting off here, I'm going to go with Oklahoma State. After getting boat raced by South Alabama at home 33-7 and a close loss to ISU on the road, Gundy & Co. have bounced back to defeat both Kansas schools and West Virginia for a 3-game win streak. So I'm going to give the Cowboys credit for not giving up on the season after a miserable, and by that I mean miserable 2-2 start, not just any 2-2 start. So good job to Gundy & Co. Joe?
I'm going to give my cheers to Russ on having a phenomenal week last week and finally getting an upset pick right. I feel like he needed a shout out. So Russ, congratulations on finally getting your picks right and going with your gut. So there we go.
Yeah, thank you.
Russ?
All right, so I got two. I'm going with Bryson Barnes. It was the Heisman winner versus the pig farmer, and the pig farmer won. And then I also want to give a shout out to Finn's Talk Sports Network for giving us this platform to just a bunch of guys who love talk college football. So Finn Talk, thank you. Really appreciate for giving this platform. I look forward to this podcast and seeing my boys every week just to talk football and talk a game I love.
We love that. Great one, Russ. Thank you to the Finn's Talk as always. And Pete, round us up for the day.
I'm going to give some cheers out to my sister who just got married. I was in the state of Wisconsin this week. The second cheers goes out to the state of Wisconsin. Epic place, epic beer, epic food. So 2 cheers to Wisconsin, my lovely sister getting married to her wonderful fiance, now husband. And then the third cheers is going to go to Utah. We were at this giant Airbnb we rented out for the wedding. Electric. We were up late watching this game. The vibes were going. The family was ripping. And it just kind of capped off a wonderful 3-day weekend there in Wisconsin. So cheers, but especially cheers to my sister because I love her.
Congratulations to your family on a beautiful, beautiful wedding. Congrats to your sister and her husband. And congrats to you all for making it to the end of this podcast. Thank you to the Finn's Talk Sports Network for having us. And this has been another episode of Touchdown in Paradise. I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
I'm Joe.
I'm Russ.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us for more. We do these every week, and we look forward to seeing you a week from now. See you then.